Here is an EOAlive LeGrand story.
Hey, EOAlive, thanks for joining us today. And today it's my pleasure to have Alex Spenser, who is running for the 2nd Congressional District. That is the seat that Greg Walden has held for 20 years or so, right? And he is retiring or vacating. And so you are running for that seat. And it's funny because you and I were talking a little bit before how that the first conversation that we had was virtual, but it was because of a snowstorm, not necessarily because of COVID.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so here we are. Not long after that, then almost everything became virtual, and so. Well, you've been on a journey here. For the people that don't know you, give us a little short synopsis of how you got into this, Alex, and I don't know, kind of tell us what's driving you. What are the things that are important to you?
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you so very much for having me back and for having this chat. It's really interesting to be able to talk to people in this way. And you're just such a relaxed host, and I really appreciate that. So how did I get into this? I was the campaign strategist for Roz Mason, who was running for the 2nd Congressional District as well. And she needed to go and, save the world in a whole nother way. And so she withdrew from the race. And as we were tying up the candidacy, tying up the campaign, she said, "Alex, I think you should run." And I said, "Well, no." She said, "Alex, I think you should run." I said, "No." And so she made me promise to really think about it. And so I did. And I went off and I spoke with my friends and I really did some soul searching. Then in my right mind and shaken all over, I began my run for the Congressional District 2. And I was always planning a run, but I thought I would be running for the Senate in a couple of years. I thought I was getting my feet wet being, campaign strategist and being performance coach for both Roz and Jamie. And it really was a surprise. It really was interesting. And what I found most interesting was as I was the campaign strategist, right? I always put all of the policy questions over to Roz. "Oh, you go learn that. You go understand that," and I'm like, "That's your job. That's your thing." And I kind of shied away from it. And now I find that that's the interesting stuff, right? When I can look at something going on in Sherman County and something going on in Harney County, and know that the thing going on in Sherman County could really save so much of Harney County if we just shared that information. And so it's really interesting, the intricacies. And of course, I'm a student of physics. I dabble. And I love the concept of the systems theory, how we're all connected by the energies that surround us, right? And that it really is true, well, that that if a butterfly flaps its wings in Florida, that it can create a thunderstorm in China. And what we really need to see from that is how connected we really are, how our actions and the reaction of the universe, the reaction of the environment, the reaction of other people, the reaction of what we do and how we move forward from that. And that everything really is just kind of a stack of dominoes, and we just choose which way, and then the dominoes fall as they may. And we have the opportunity to look at the obstacle in front of us and realize that the obstacle really is the way. So it's been very, very interesting, this whole foray into politics.
Well, so connect. I mean, that's an interesting concept. Some people might think, well, that's like way out there a little bit, and that's all right. But connect it a little bit. So give me an example of something that you've experienced in one county that really does relate, or, I don't know, flush that out for me just a little bit.
Absolutely. So in Harney County, there's a real issue with water. Of course, water is something that is an issue for all of us. And in Harney County, they are running out of water. They're using 94% of their water table in irrigation. And then up to 40% of that is going up in evaporation. So we really need a new way to irrigate, especially the alfalfa fields. And that's a great place for government, because we need to do more testing and understanding of how the varmints will affect the way we irrigate, how alfalfa grows, how deep does it grow, can we do something subsurface, and if we do something subsurface, do we have to worry about the gophers, right? And so in Harney County, they are running out of water. So 94% of the water table is being used for irrigation, and the wells are running dry. And what they found is at the bottom of those wells is naturally occurring arsenic. And so as these wells run dry, folks are poisoning themselves and their families, and it's obviously a real issue. And we need to start looking at water as not as a commodity, but as something that belongs to all of us, that is something to protect. Now, what I learned was in Sherman County itself, the county was having some monetary issues. And what they did was they brought in wind farms. They brought in wind turbines, and from the wind turbines, from the taxes that came out of the wind turbines, Sherman County is now solvent for the next 10 years. And what I see is the income of that and the amount of space that it takes is, if we were to have smaller scale wind turbines in Harney County, if every farmer gave 1-2 acres even over to wind farms, then they would be still getting income from that acreage, and it would relieve pressure on the water table. So this all seems to make just perfect sense to me. And when you look at the fact that of our family farms, 61% of them make in profit less than $10,000 a year, this is something that could really bolster the families of Oregon.
That's interesting.
Right.
So I'm sure that you're in Ontario, but your home is in, remind me, Southern Oregon somewhere, right?
Klamath Falls.
Okay. And so I'm sure that you've seen parts of Oregon that you never thought that you would, and are experiencing cultures of people and farmers and so on and so forth in a way that you haven't. So out of that, what are some of the passions? What are some of the important issues that have developed for you that as a politician, and that's where you are right now. Yeah. As a politician, politicians can talk about anything, and not really have a clear path to get to those things, and you just get elected, and we're all tired of that. So given what you learned, given some of your passions that you've developed, what are some things that you can see really are doable, and specifically that will help the people of Eastern Oregon, because that's where we are. That's what matters to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I was able to travel freely and talk to everybody and stay with folks and wake up and have breakfast with them, right? The one thing across the board that everyone said, the most important thing, was that they wanted to end the divisiveness in Congress. And that, of course, would help everyone. And what I've learned is that I have been able to go from town to town and meet people in very small ways now, right? We don't get to have the big town halls that they used to be able to have. My plan was, just so y'all know, I was going to go to every grange in every county all across Congressional District 2 and have a town hall in every grange, at least one town hall in every grange, so that I could meet everybody, so I could shake your hand, so I could really get to know you. And it's been it's been difficult because I know that your vote is the most important thing that you have. And so many folks in Eastern Oregon, they want to meet you before they give you their vote. And and I really want to meet you back. And yet, what we've had to do and the virtual way that we've had to move through this mire of COVID has been really, really wonderful in a lot of ways and really sad in a lot of other ways. You know, I have people saying, Alex, where are you? We don't hear anything from you. What are you doing? You know, and ever since, so this Thursday will be our 42nd virtual town hall. We have done a virtual town hall every single Thursday at noon since the first week of January. And that has been a revelation. It is so wonderful the way it's worked out, because folks know now just by osmosis that if they come in the room, I'm going to ask what they need. What is it? What can I do for you? What is your voice? I want to know your issues from your lips. What is it that's important to you in Congressional District 2? And it has been fantastic. And then we also have this following on Facebook. So when we go live every Thursday, we go live on Facebook as well. And so folks can listen there and replay it and play it at any time they want. The issue is you got to figure out how to connect with everybody and let them know this is where you're going to be. Because in the virtual world, when you're there, you're there. And then when you're not, you're not. And it's not like, you know, being able to meet somebody and shake their hand and really look them in the eye and be able to understand really what they're feeling and how they're feeling. So that's been a revelation. While not a positive one, it's good to know that heartfelt desire is still within everyone. And as we're opening up, as we're really able to do more things outside, as we understand the coronavirus and that we know that masks are just so very, very important, and being without a mask also becomes very, very important, because that's the way we get sick. So, and that's the way we spread the disease. So all of these revelations have just been heart-wrenching, and at the same time, the knowledge that we've gained, the way that we understand the world, and the closer the world has become. And we understand now, certainly, that broadband, and I know that Brent understands this very, very well, that broadband has become the most important thing for everyone, especially for children and for teachers. I spoke to some teachers who are having such issues with being able to teach because they have school-aged children, and they're having to, ration their internet connection. And it's really difficult for folks. And that's one of those things that we can bring to CD2 right away. It's really important. It's something that Mr. Walden really could have gotten a hold of. He's been in office for 21 years, and I don't think that broadband internet access has been broadened very much during his tenure. And it's something that certainly we can get a handle on right away. And I do believe the number is $480 billion we have already paid in for infrastructure for these exorbitant prices. And that is something else that needs to become a utility rather than a commodity, is our cell phone usage and our internet usage, because we cannot move forward without it. We can't teach our children anymore without internet access. And so that's the most important thing right now moving through CD2.
Those are all really interesting points. And I, before this, kind of in preparation for us talking, I went to your website. I saw where you had a standing Zoom meeting, and kudos to you for reaching out, because that's something that we have missed so much, is, and it doesn't matter at what level, a connection to the people who serve us. And so, thank you for doing that. So you're right. Of all of it's hilarious that of all of the issues that stare at us and that the folks deal with, that the people in Washington can't get along with each other to find any kind of a compromise. I mean, what a sad commentary that is on our situation. And so I guess one of the things I'm wondering is that this is a traditional Republican seat. You're running as a Democrat. I mean, right out of the gate, you're running upstream. And so I don't know, maybe give me some ideas of how you envision being able to reach across the aisle and work together to do some things. Here's a better question. What are some of the issues that Oregonians face that you think Republicans and Democrats could come together and make some headway on?
Excellent question. I do believe, first of all, we think of ourselves as way far away from each other, and we're really very, very close together. We all want the same things. We all want clean, cold, healthy water. We all want fresh air. We all want sustainable energy for our livelihoods and our lives. We all want the same thing for ourselves and for our children and for our grandchildren and their grandchildren. And it is really important that we do find those places to come together. And I think that one of them certainly could be gun responsibility. Now, we have had a tragedy here in Oregon just a few days ago. I believe it was Saturday. A young man shot himself with a gun. This young man was 3 years old. And what I propose is common sense gun responsibility and licensure. That means that we know that you know how to care for, how to fire, how to take care of and keep safe a firearm. And then we need a higher provision of licensure if you have a child in the home, because there is no one that feels like that small child needed to die from that gun. And it is time that we look out for kids. It's time that we look out for everyone. When we're talking about magazine rounds, it's just common sense to have a magazine round that is 10 rounds or less. Up in Washington right now, in the House of Representatives, there's a bill on the floor that would limit rounds in a magazine to 9. And this makes sense, and I'll tell you why. Because in an active shooter scenario, we're not talking about out at the gun range, and I like to fire a gun just as much as the next girl. We're not talking about out at the gun range where we're being safe, we have our protection on our ears, we are just shooting at a target. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the active shooter situation and the time it takes to remove that cartridge and replace it. That's what we need. That's all we're asking for. Is that maybe 10 seconds, if that, maybe 5 seconds that it takes someone who knows what they're doing to pull out that cartridge, drop it on the ground, pick up another one from their belt and put it in the gun and shoot. We need that time. That time is incredibly important. That time saves lives. And we're talking the lives of school children. We're talking the lives of concert goers. It's time that we care for everyone, bring everyone up, and common sense gun responsibility is one of those ways to go about it. It makes sense, it's good for everyone, and it makes sure that if you're carrying a gun, you know how to use the gun, that when you fire the gun, you're going to hit what you're aiming at. And I'll tell you what, I've got a friend now out in Merrill, talk about talking Republican, right? This lovely marshal out in Merrill taught me the other day. Now, I'm from Texas, okay, so I know from a gun, but he sat down and he said, okay, what do you want me to tell you? I said, well, teach me like I know nothing. He said, okay, well, and he went through the entire process, how you clean it, how you clear it, how you take care of it, how you hold it so that nobody else can take it from you, how to hold it out and how to aim it and how to fire it. And I'll tell you what, by the time I was shooting that 6th bullet, the 6th and 7th bullet were bullseyes. And it was absolutely amazing and wonderful and fantastic, and what a rush. And yes, I do carry that in my car with me. You're welcome to see it anytime. And what I learned from that experience more than anything else was, while I can hold a gun and shoot a gun and hit what I'm aiming at, I need a whole lot more practice. That stuff has got to be sense memory before you carry a gun. You need to be able to protect that gun, because 90% of the time that gun's going to get taken away from you and used against you. Because generally, if there's a perpetrator, that perpetrator knows he's coming. You're the one that doesn't. They've got the jump on you, right? So they're going to take that gun and use it against you, unless you are very, 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 very well trained. And that's what we need in order to allow people to carry a gun in public. Carry a gun where there are children. If that gun can be taken away from you, then that gun can be used against you or against someone else. And so common sense gun responsibility, that's a good place to start.
And I think that there are a lot of people that, they might be uneasy with that conversation, but when it comes right down to it, they're willing to make some compromises. I guess what do you say to the people that say, well, yeah, but the gun laws that we pass, I mean, there's two things that run through my head.
Mm-hmm.
The gun laws that we pass, the only ones that are going to actually follow the law are the already citizens that obey the law, and I guess the other question is how what do you think about, there's just this huge movement to make the most vulnerable places gun-free zones, which are primary targets then again for the outlaws who are not going to follow the laws. What do you think about that?
Okay, so
by the way, you waded into this, not me. So.
I know, no, it's fair game, absolutely, and of course, and I've got an answer for you. Good. So, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the second thing first. I'm going to ask you to repeat the first part. Okay. So the second part, you said making gun-free zones, and that makes it easier for criminals to come in.
Yeah, and they're actually both related, because they're related to, if you pass gun-free zones, or if you pass laws against guns, the people that are really going to comply are the law-abiding citizens.
I see that. Well, one of the things that we can ensure is to start passing laws that keep people from attaining the gun in the first place, because there's the problem, right? Is that the bad guy has the gun. And so we need to have common sense gun responsibility laws that make it harder to obtain the gun in the first place. Now, I happen to think that a stalker, a convicted stalker, should not be able to carry a gun. And that's one of the places me and my opponent differ. I think that women are more important than that. I think women need to be cared for. And I think that while it could be a valid point that, yes, the bad guys are still going to have guns, it has been proven that the bad guys that just attain guns wherever they attain guns, buying back those guns has been incredibly successful. And so that is a good place for government. And I think that when we lift everyone up, it's like, a friend of mine says that when the tide comes in, it lifts all ships. When everyone is cared for, when we have jobs that pay a living wage, when you don't have to work 3 jobs just to pay your rent, just to feed your family, well, then you're not as likely to, be a criminal. It just makes sense. It's time that we care for everyone. And when we care for everyone, there is less crime, because people do crime out of need, out of necessity, out of if nothing else, just wanting to fit in. Well, if we have healthy people, if we have healthy children, if we bring children up to respect each other, to accept each other, we have systemic racism in America. And it is time that we look at it, we call it out, we name it so that we can do something about it. We need to teach our police forces about acceptance. We need to teach kids at an early age. We need to make anthropology classes. They need to be there in junior high, if not before, because when you know about other cultures and other people who grew up differently than you do, people that learn different things while they're growing up, then you understand that, oh, well, they're not that different from me. They just live in a different place, or they just, we have to understand humanity. We now live in a global society. Whether we like it or not, it's time to admit we live in a global society. My daughter talks to people in Japan every day. We live in a global society, and it's time we embrace it rather than push against it. It's time that we understand that this connectedness that we know in physics, the fact that, yes, that butterfly can create a thunderstorm in Japan or in wherever, that the energy is connected, that we are connected to each other, that your voice coming to me means I am going to have the information that I can take to Washington. We are connected. We are understood. I want you understood. I want to make sure that your voice is important. I want to make sure that the issues as you see them, as you understand them, are what is going to happen in Congress. So when I'm elected, that's what you get.
Good.
Thank you.
So you've mentioned water resources, and I'm trying to think of you talk about gun control or some kind of limitations, some kind of common sense things that are important for you.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything else? And I'm sorry, I'm missing some of the things that you were talking about, systemic racism and understanding that, and having our police be understanding of that, and so on and so forth. Are there any other burning issues that are important to you that you want to mention?
Absolutely. Well, with COVID-19, we have realized that the idealistic has now become pragmatic. So many people have lost their jobs. And even those who've gone back to work have gone back to work for a lesser wage or for fewer hours. And we have this gap. We have this huge monetary gap that has yet to be filled. And if I were in Congress today, what I would be working towards is ensuring that $1,200 payment that everyone got continued throughout these months that they have not been able to make a choice. They've not been able to make a decision to support the American people. And then that same monthly payment continues until the crisis has resolved, because that moratorium on evictions is going to end. And when it ends, if we don't do something, and do something now, people are not going to be able to pay that bill. They're going to be put out of their homes, and we're going to see homelessness that rivals that of the Great Depression. And we need to take care of people. We've also learned that when folks lost their jobs, they lost their health care. And we've realized that may not be our best way to go about healthcare in America. That yes, universal healthcare may have been idealistic, and now it's pragmatic. It's what we need to do. It's what we need for America to care for everyone. Everyone is important. And it's time everyone had the same health care, the same universal health care. And I'm talking members of Congress, the president, everyone on down gets exactly the same health care, because when everybody's got skin in the game, it will be the very best healthcare system on the planet. And we can do that. And I betcha we can do it for less money than what we're paying now, because we are paying more for healthcare today in America than anywhere else on the planet. We can do better.
Yeah. Okay, so one last little thing. And so your opponents, and I think there are two, right? I mean, Cliff, and is there an independent person also?
He is a libertarian.
Okay.
And he, in his statement online, he says, "I'm in over my head. I just want to say this." So
okay.
it's really interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
So there are technically two, but it
Okay.
looks like it's really down to me and Mr. Benz.
Okay. And, kudos to you for, I mean, when you and I first met, I think there were 12 or 13 people that
Right.
were in the field that were running for this seat. And so, again, way to go to stick it out to this point and to your success, regardless of how this all turns out. You have accomplished something. So what would your opponents say if they had to poke at you about something? What would they say? What is something they would say that you would want to rebut? How would you want to answer those questions that they are putting forth on your behalf?
Right. Well, I think that what they would say, these gentlemen, I think that they would say, what do you, a wife, not a wife, a single mom, what do you, a single mom, have to offer Oregon? How do you think you can do this job? And I would say this: clearly, you've never been a single mom. It is the hardest job in the world. It is, by and large, the most difficult job in the world. And if we were to get paid, oh my goodness, if we were to get paid for the work that we do. I also am a writer. I also am a longtime activist, seeing what has needed to stand up and do, right? So I was one of the co-founders of the Klamath Force for Peaceful Action, which was an indivisible group. I was the co-founder and leader of the Women's March in Klamath Falls for 3 years. I see what needs to be done, and I do it. My very first time in a live studio, I almost got to LeGrand that day, except for going over Cabbage Hill and the ice and the snow, but instead of being there with you, I was in Medford at KOBI. And their setup is really interesting. Okay, so you go in and there's this really tall table, and it's about 3 feet in diameter. Well, 3 feet in diameter, right? And it has tall bar stools, but they're not bar stools, they're office chairs, okay? And so I'm vertically challenged. So I clamber up and sit down in this chair. And and I'm squirming a little bit, and he's like, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Well, I'm a little uncomfortable. Do you mind if I change the way the chair is situated?" "Well, sure," he says, "but remember, if you pull that thing, it'll go down really fast." I'm like, "Oh, that's not what it is. It's not the height. It's the footrest." And he said, "Well, I don't think that moves." I said, "Well, do you mind if I check?" "Oh, sure." So I basically, fell off the chair. Didn't fall off. I was more graceful than that. And yet, when I got down, I looked at the footrest and I pulled it up. I adjusted it to where it needed to go. I screwed in the little thing and I stepped on the footrest and I settled into the chair, and it was very easy. And I said, "Okay, I'm ready now. Thank you so much." And he said, "Alex, 1,000 people have sat in that chair, and every one of them complained about it. And you are the only one that has ever done anything about it. You are a problem solver. That's why you're running for Congress." And that's true.
That's good.
Oh, I would also like to say one other thing about being the underdog, and I don't really look at it that way. And first of all, I see this as a very long, very expensive, very fun job interview, right?
Right.
And I see that our non-affiliated voters, they outnumber the Republicans, right? And in our very, very, we've done a bit of a poll. We're calling non-affiliated voters to have them come out and vote, make sure that everybody is voting. And by the way, everybody vote. It's so incredibly important, especially this year, even though, Joe Biden will win Oregon. We need him to win big. We need it to be a landslide. So please, everyone vote. And I totally lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? I'm so sorry, Brent.
No, it's
amazing. That's the only time I've done this.
So we'll just cut here, but let's figure out where you were
at. The non-affiliated voters. Yeah. That's what it was. Okay.
So let me cut back to this. Yeah. And then just launch there.
Great. Yes. So the non-affiliated voters outnumber the Republicans. And of course, the Republicans outnumber the Dems, but the Democrats, they're edging up, right? We are a very diverse, very, very diverse district. And in our very informal poll, just calling folks and asking them to come out and vote, 69% of the non-affiliated voters are voting for the Dems. So I think we've got a really, really good shot. Plus, when you have an opponent that says he's pro-Trump, pro-life, and pro-guns, every time Mr. Trump opens his mouth, it helps me quite a bit. So I really do think we've got an excellent chance, excellent opportunity. And I will be the very first woman to represent Congressional District 2. And I will be your voice in Congress.
Excellent. And problem-solving skills are one of the things I can't tell you how critical that is, how thankful I am for a dad who raised me and drug me out of the house and helped me figure things out and let me struggle with stuff, because that skill has served me incredibly well. And you're right. It applies to everything in life, and it certainly would apply to you in Congress as well. So good luck, Alex. Man, it's in just a short period of time. It'll be all over. Is it?
I'm looking forward to November 4th, man.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time, and good luck on the rest of your journey. Please be safe as you travel out there.
Thank you.
Again, thanks for taking the time. And Eastern Oregon, thank you for tuning in today for this conversation that I've had with Alex. We're hoping to have a conversation similar to this with Cliff Bentz, and hopefully that will be coming to you soon. And always appreciate our sponsors, Grand Ron Hospital and EONI and Eastern Oregon. We'll see you next time.